Good evening. I'm Zarganat. Welcome to the studio. So, tonight, more of the 4x2. So, over the weekend, I went out to, well, I went up, took a ride to a favourite model shop, which is quite a good one, Model Sport UK, and got myself 3 generic servos. There isn't a lot of load on these servos, or there shouldn't really be a lot of load on these servos, is perhaps the better way of describing it, because the one is used for steering. Well, there shouldn't be a lot of side loads really on this because it's not a high-speed model. It's not, or shouldn't be subject to shocks and things like that. One is for the gearbox. The gearbox shouldn't be tight to change gears, so it shouldn't need a particularly powerful servo to do that. It should be reasonably free running, should be adjusted so that it's not overdriving servos. So again, that shouldn't need a very powerful servo. The third one is for actually an accessory pack to the truck, which allows you to decouple the fifth wheel. That's the thing on the back that the trailer links into, and this unlocks it. On the standard kit it's a manual lever. With an accessory kit it becomes remote controllable. They use it, again, shouldn't need a lot of effort to unlock it, and providing you adjust the servo correctly, you shouldn't be overdriving it. So again, it shouldn't need anything particularly special. Okay, if you wanted to spend a little bit more money on the servo, you could do steering perhaps, or I'm holding this one, they're all identical. The steering of the gearbox, perhaps. The gearbox sometimes can be a little bit hard to adjust, but again, as I say, it should move fairly freely, so it really shouldn't be a problem. But we'll just go with them. I also got some other things. I did verify, by the way, that this is the correct ball race pack for this particular kit. I got it some time ago, so it's not labelled, but it's got the right number of bits in it, of the right sizes. Believe it or not, there's 3 different sizes of bearings in there. One of them, well, 2 of them are obvious to see apart. The third one is a little bit more difficult, but they are correct. And I also got a what did I get? I got a speed controller, because I didn't have one for this, or I might have one but I don't know where it is. And I also discovered that the radio that I use, which is an air radio, because that's how I started a long time ago. I've always flown aircraft. No, that's not strictly true. I started with boats, but that back then the radios were something called bang bang radios. That's a long time ago. Proportional radios were sort of around, but not very much. So I did actually start with a single channel radio, but that's a different story. First time I actually started, what more, I was going to say professional, but that's not the right word, but actively doing something more than, you know, like, well, I started with planes, so I had a proper proportional radio, and I gave up modelling for quite some time. Quite some years. When I started again, I started with that must be in there. I started with helicopters, so an air radio was kind of the thing. And back then, okay, so yeah, I'm jumping around a little bit. So I started with the helicopters. So I bought a Spectrum radio. At the time, 2.4 gigahertz, one of the only, I won't say the only ones around, but they certainly, it was still very specialised at the time. don't think at the time even for Tabuk come out with their 2.4 GHz, or they just had. But it's a very nice radio. I've got quite a few. I've got several helicopters. When I bought my first truck kit, it seemed reasonable just to use the same radio. I needed 4 channels, so I just used 4 channels. There is no rules in the UK that preclude you, that stop you from using an air radio for ground. There are differences in frequencies, so there were, or if you were using the older analog radios, then you would want to use a specific frequency, and therefore there might be some limitation. You potentially couldn't use what would be classed as an air radio. Essentially what I'm saying by an air radio is one with sticks, 2 sticks on it, which you twiddle around to fly things. You can drive with them as well. I had it. It was an expensive radio, relatively speaking, so I carried on. The other thing, the reason I did look at what would be vehicle-based radios. Now the vehicle-based radios tend to be the pistol grip ones with a steering wheel on them. At the time there were 2 channels. If you were lucky you could get 3. These trucks need 4. So they basically ruled themselves out. There wasn't enough channels. There are different ways of doing it these days, which I may get into using at some point, but the one thing I found out this weekend, if you like, was that my Spectrum radio, which I knew was an old one, and at some point I might replace it, but the receivers for that particular radio essentially are no longer available. There was quite a range of them, but they're essentially no longer available. I don't want big ones, expensive ones. I wanted the cheap ones. You can get some from some locations which I would not necessarily trust, shall we say. So it was a case of, okay, I need new radio. So this weekend I actually bought a new radio. I'm not going to go into that now. I'll probably show that in another stream, but I will do. I'm going to do a YouTube video for it. And put that up on YouTube. So if you would like to see that before I start talking about it in a few streams time, when I come to start doing radio stuff for this truck, then take a look on YouTube. Right, so it means I can sort of we've skipped some steps. If I just clear some space, when we started with this, we skipped some steps. We skipped the steps which were building the mounting and the control hardware for the servos. So step 1, step 2. We moved straight on to step 3, which was putting the captive nuts into this and then building the side rails, which are here, or starting to build the side rails. So what we'll do is we'll go back and do the bits that we skipped using these Core RC radios. Radios, receivers, I'll get to the end, which is servos. And not particularly fast. 12 seconds, 4 kilogram, as I say, should be enough. Actually, I've never had one of these, so let's have a look at them. They are inexpensive, shall we say. You will open, there we go. Yeah, standard size servo. Miniature servos not required here. It doesn't serve any purpose to have miniature servos, particularly, so I haven't. Servo itself, mounting kit. Well, I was about to say most of that mounting kit I don't need. I will probably put the rubber bushes in, even though it doesn't really talk about doing that on the instructions, but we'll see about that. So servo. Now what I need is the particular parts that go on the top of each of them. So start with the I will get my words out tonight. You know, at some point in this broadcast I will actually speak and make sense. Oh, can they? Okay. Sorry, I'm just trying to get rid of, that's it, a message that was on my screen. I don't want the keyboard up, thank you. Right. So I now need to look for various bits and pieces. These are bits of plastic. I know these are bits of plastic. So this is sprue or tree E. They're probably going to be, I was going to say they're probably going to be black, but I don't actually know. That's because I happen to have C out here. That's not it, the other one that's there. I know that, so I've now got to go digging in the box. Well, I do know roughly what I'm looking for, which is these parts here. This is tree E. They always have the back on it. So I've got some of the parts here. This is the fifth wheel, by the way, or rather that. Yeah, that's the one that you do use, I think, if you don't use the accessory kit. So I want to start with E1, E5 and 13, and E11 and E2. Okay, so E2 is one of these rings here. Where did I put my cutters? They're down here. As I mentioned before, you cut these off. Don't bend them off. You don't sort of waggle the things back and forwards to bend them off. You either distort the parts, you get rough edges on them that you've then got to clean up, or just generally it's not a good idea. E11, which is this arm here. So good side cutters actually make this job a lot easier. A good sharp pair. Almost, well, in some cases cuts off virtually clean. Not a perfect cut. I mean, I can see on here where it was, he says, holding it completely off camera. I mean, I can see where it was attached, but I can't, and I can feel it, but it's not really that noticeable. It's a different colour. All this is nice and shiny, where I've cut isn't. But if I'd have bent that backwards and forwards, it would have looked worse. And on a small part, you have the danger of actually breaking the bit. E1, which will be one of these two. Both of them are labelled 1, so I can pick either. Okay, and then it's E5 and E13. That's 13 and that's 5. Oh, okay. So what you do is, yeah, it's labelled 2, that's E5, this is E13. And they both look identical. And in actual fact, it's a choice of parts. I wonder if it actually says that somewhere on the screen. It says on the screen. I'm talking about the paper. It actually got paper, real paper. It's not an on-screen. Might be these days, I guess, in the latest kits. I don't know. This kit's a few years old. But I remember now, you have E13 for Tamiya and Tamiya servos, E5 for Samba and ACOM servos. Well, I have no idea, but basically what it is on the back, when you look at a servo, this is the serrated output, and I'm guessing the size or the number of teeth in the serration is different between ACOMs and Samba. So I don't know which one I want. Well, that one goes in, and that one goes in a lot easier. So that one's a tight fit. So that possibly means it's not the right one. I don't know. That goes in. It is tight. It's not as though, by tight I mean I don't have to. That one have to push it in. This one sort of drops in. I'm rocking it backwards and forwards. It's not moving. The servo is. That's the backlash on the gears. But it's not badly fitting, shall we say. It's a nice, good fit. So we'll go with this particular one, which is the Tamiya Volvo output. So if you wondered why it lists 2 parts, that's why. You get your choice. They've made a part specifically for each of the servos. I've cut that so well it wouldn't come out. Right, I'll just put that to one side for the moment. So essentially what happens is that goes on the servo and that goes on there. You sort of, it's like a C-clip, you expand it slightly like that, and then this goes on top. I'll probably have to take it apart again in a second, like that. But what happens is if you overdrive this servo, then what happens is this clip that I've just put in the middle opens up, it sort of expands, shall we say, and allows a little bit of play. I can't actually cause it to do that at the moment, not even to show it. Well, it's sort of, if you were able to look, and this focuses, but if I do that, the clip opens up slightly, so essentially it's like a safety device. I'm just going to set that roughly in the middle. I've put everything in the right place there, as it happens. So what I can do now is just drop this washer, for want of a better description, in the top, and I'll now need to put a screw in there, which will be one of two. And I've got the Tamiya Volvo, so it's suggesting I want MA5. So pack metal A5. So is it that one? Screw MA5 is in pack. Yeah, okay, I'll get this right. MA5 is metal pack 5, which is metal A, which I think is in here. At this point I'm thinking, am I getting this right? Because the screw pack is labelled BA. So I am at this point just going, am I doing it right? Maybe not, because this pack is labelled A. So I think it's this pack here. So, which kind of goes along with the fact that most of these are the radio control parts. So MA5 is a middle length screw, which is that one. It's a silver screw. You can even tell the colours of the screws on the diagram here to the left. Because the black screws are dark and the silver screws are light. Now then, the other thing is, I don't know whether I trust that. It has an end stop on it, so that's okay. Now then, what I did a moment ago just makes life a bit easier, but I ran the servo to one end. You shouldn't really do this very often, driving a servo by the top. You can damage the gears, but what I'm just doing here is just finding the midpoint roughly, which is about there, because I want to put this arm at the midpoint. And these servos happen to have been delivered at their midpoint, but you could also plug them into a receiver and drive them to the midpoint that way. Now then, I need a screwdriver. Guess what I don't have out? Actually I do, but I wasn't prepared for one, so this may be the... it'll do. Okay, I'm going to screw this down